Hello, everyone. We're live yet again, and this is one of my authors' chats of the week. And so, as always, we'll be talking about books, writing, publishing, and everything in between. I'm going to keep my eye out for my co-host for today, and then we'll get things rocking and rolling in just a little while. And what's been going on for me is that last week I had a double release of two different kind of books. One was an audio book for the 11th volume of the Guardian Speaker series, my Dark Viking Fantasy. And the other book was the fact that I had a short story in my first anthology, and the anthology is called A Compendium of Secrets. So those both released on Tuesday. Now, being an indie author, trying to arrange audiobooks to release across the board simultaneously is very short of impossible. So though it's available pretty much most places, Zon's a little slower on the uptake, and I'm trying to just find out behind the scenes if why that is this time. There's always some glitch or something. Such is life. But outside of that, it's been going well, and I've been, let me see if I can get things going here. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I cannot see you. I know there's a way you're supposed to turn your...
Yep, we got it.
Hi!
Hello.
How are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm glad we got to get together today and we get to talk about some things like books. But
absolutely.
I don't know if you've ever listened to any of these live chats before. As I kind of mentioned behind the scenes, they're pretty conversational. If anybody in the chat mentions something bookish related or, book related questions, I usually try to, note those or allow us to give us a chance to answer them however we can. Partly because if this platform's nice, usually it is, sometimes it's not. I'll try to repurpose this video on my YouTube channel later on and put all your information down below so people can find and follow you going forward. But
Perfect.
With that said, since you're my co-host today, I'll let you introduce yourself, what you write, and we'll go from there.
Perfect. So my name is Kayla Rutherford. I am the small business owner of Enchanted Realms Co. So I write young adult fantasy, and I also do a little bit of adult fantasy. Those are not published yet, but we are working on that slowly but surely. Enchanted Realms Co. is my small business featured around my published books. So I also do homemade candles, soy wax, as well as cold processed soap, bookmarks, bracelets. So I try and do all of that when I'm marketing at in-person events.
I love that. I was going to say, I've seen more and more people try to find different ways, especially with like aromas. So, talking about candles and soaps. I don't know if I've seen it soaps before, but like try to match things with like characters or settings or scenes, and having that kind of extra layer to like get someone immersed in your world is really cool. So how did you get involved? I'll get back to the books, I promise, but this is kind of always fascinating to me. How did you get involved with the whole candles and soap side of things while you were creating this bookish business?
So I will say that I always come across book boxes on my Facebook, especially advertisement. And I was always interested, and a lot of times I would buy books just for a book box so that it had all the extra goodies. And that was kind of where it started off, with focusing on my books, doing specific items. So for instance, for my Blood of Power series, my first book was focused around lavender products. And then my second book was focused around, it was called Volcano, which is like a tangerine scent. And I kind of started getting away with adding more fragrances, experimenting a little bit more. So now I have probably about maybe 10 different scents and fragrances, both in soap and candle form. So that's kind of about where it started. And I've also noticed that when I do go to person events, if they aren't interested in young adult fantasy, they'll end up buying like a soap or candle as sorry, I'm not into this genre, but I'm still going to buy something.
I like that. And that's the thing is, there are genres and there are books. I really do believe that there's a book for everybody out there. You just have to find the book. And the same thing when it comes to genres. Now, not everybody's going to like a single book, and not everybody's going to enjoy a genre. So it is always interesting to me to see how people want to support, especially independent authors, because there's so much effort that we put on behind the scenes, from the marketing, the producing, the micromanaging. Woo, boy, I know it. But seeing how people want to support you, and there are a variety of ways, but I like this idea of spreading beyond just the literary pages. But going to your books, you said you started off with young adult fantasy. How many books do you have at this moment? Because you mentioned first books, so I'm assuming then you have a few out by now.
So I have a completed trilogy, Blood of Power. First book, Blood of Power. Second book, Blood of Destruction, and the third book, Blood of Revival. Those have was completed approximately early last year. And I
Nice.
am working on another young adult series, which will be releasing in October. That one is called Shadow Royals. It's based off of the Seven Sins. And I also am working with another editor on a dark adult fantasy romance, which will be coming out early next year. So I like to dabble in both genres. I read both young adult, and I don't like sticking to just one genre, and I'll tend to kind of deviate a little bit. But currently, just the Blood of Power is published, but we're working on trying to publish a young adult and adult series simultaneously.
Woo! I could speak to that. It is I love jockeying between different series when I'm publishing. So I'm always working on multiple projects for different age brackets and things like so it sounds a little bit like what you're about to be doing. But it also can be a little trying because it's hard, especially when you're branching out of a certain age bracket into another age bracket to try to find the right readership and not confuse people. So are you considering the pen name for your adult versus your YA, or are you putting them all under the same author name, or how have you figured out that?
So I have gone back and forth with that one, primarily because I do have a full-time job and I do have a very public face when I am working. I interact with the public a lot, so I've been back and forth between if I'm going under a pen name or under my business name. I think I might end up going under my business name as my last name Rutherford is actually my maiden name. So anyone that generally knows me on the public side hopefully will not make the connection later on. And if they do, we'll just pretend that I did not write this book series. So I most likely will have it falling underneath my business name. I think it is a little bit trying, especially being a full-time employee, to start having two different marketing strategies. Time is limited.
That is no, that is true, and time is limited. And I'll be curious to know as you go forward if you find marketing to a certain group easier than another. I know I have different series, so I have a YA series, a new adult, and adult series out right now, and it's easier for me to market in general towards more towards the adult side than it is for
No, I
YA.
agree. I
So it
agree.
is. I love YA books, but it's hard because if you really think about it, the readership you're quote unquote aiming for, the young adults, so these teenagers aren't necessarily the ones who are buying said books. You're marketing to parents, family members, for like gifts and birthdays and stuff like that, versus the actual audience that you're trying to market to. So that does make it tricky. So how have you figured out to navigate YA book publishing? Because it's hard for me.
No, I absolutely agree. I tend to have more luck going to in-person events. That way I can kind of make the connection. It's more geared towards, I wouldn't say specifically teenagers, but have been a lot of teenagers that have come up to me asking me if it's clean. So I tend to do better a lot more with physical in-person events rather than trying to market on TikTok or Facebook. Facebook tends to do okay, especially with Kindle Unlimited, but selling a physical product I have found is not the best unless you're doing a special edition. So I am actually working on a special edition right now for Blood of Power. The sprayed edges,
I
foiled,
love it.
colored interior, and I have found that most people, especially for a young adult, they'll buy the sprayed edges just because it looks pretty, not because they want to read it.
That is the thing, and I don't think it's just for young adult. There are plenty of people who like pretty books, and when I buy a book, I do want to read it eventually. But it doesn't hurt when the book is extra pretty and has that pizzazz, and so I understand that. But I truly know some authors that will buy the special editions, and they'll admit it. They're like, I'm buying them because the book's attractive. I don't necessarily know if I'm going to read it. I'm like, you know what? You're supporting another author. That's great. That's all I see. I mean, would I be curious if you read the books? Yes. But on the other hand, you're still supporting the author. So that
Yeah,
is kind of cool.
absolutely.
So when you're talking about having your first special edition, I just went through that whole process towards the end of last year. I did a crowdfunding campaign to launch it, and I'm about to release them finally officially this summer, so you can kind of see a couple of them back there. But how are you going to approach that particular release? Are you going to do a launch? Are you doing like some kind of funding campaign? Are you, do you have any idea of how you're going to debut said book?
Yeah, so I will be using Kickstarter. And I'm not sure where you get your special editions from. I don't know if it's US or international based. I am attempting to see how this goes, but I will be using Book Vault for my actual case design, and then I will be getting the dust jacket internationally, and I'll be doing a bulk order of the dust jacket just so I don't lose money in the Kickstarter campaign.
Ah, very nice. Yeah, I did the dust jackets through Book Vault because I have that's a dust jacket for the shiny thing underneath. That's one of the examples, but it's one of those things. There are so many options out for people to do and figure out what makes sense. And when it comes to Book Vault, because they are a lot of their quote unquote bespoke, so the special edition stuff they call bespoke, for anybody who listens to this and is like, what are you talking about? That's that at this moment in time comes in internationally. They can print basic level paperback hardcovers here in the States, but if you want the pretty books, they do ship them in internationally. And so that's what I'm waiting for, is my big bulk order of the books to finally arrive, so that I can start sending them out to people and do my happy dance and try to not drown in 1,002 stacks of books in my office.
Understandable.
Do you have any ideas of when you would want to launch your special editions?
So we're still working on that one. Most likely it'll probably be towards the end of July or beginning of August, with my Shadow Royal series also releasing in October. I've been trying to work between that launch and then also my special edition launch, and I'm kind of dependent on my editor and then how fast I can get everything combined and get all the I guess like sample books in for the special edition before I officially start funding it.
Yeah, no, I get that. I definitely do. And I waited to get my first orders of first proofs, essentially, for the special editions. And even though they weren't going to be the finalized things, I realized, I need to brighten certain colors and adjust certain things. But having that was really helpful when I was trying to explain to people. I'm like, this is kind of what it looks like, except it's going to be better.
Right, exactly.
Think this, but better. So I did take a few rounds of that, going back and making sure everything looked right before I, got the final stuff. But it is exciting. It's a fun process. And then you have your standard books, and then that pretty shiny, flashy version too, which is
the prettier books. The special editions, they're for me. They're not for anyone else. They're for me.
Well, I mean, they're going to be for other people too. I will just say, so far, what I've been, even though I haven't officially launched the books because I don't have them in stock, I'm waiting for them to be printed and shipped, but I've been doing pre-orders for them and at events, talking about live events, and it has been really interesting to see how many people just see, the mock-ups, and they're like, yes, I want this. How do I get this right now? I'm like, well, you can buy now, but you have to wait.
Right. So out of curiosity, how long does it take you to fully set up your Kickstarter campaign? From creating your launch page do you do about like 2 to 3 months for fundraising? Some authors do it differently, so that's why I ask.
For me, how I've done that for this past special edition, and now it's what I'm going to be doing this summer for my next book launch, I obviously do the background stuff of setting up the page and have the pre-launch stuff where people can sign up, and that's always important because, the more people you can get to sign up early, you can't guarantee that they're going to actually back, but it does help the launch and it does help the algorithms, and it gives you an idea, at least early on, if this is something that really will interest people. So having enough time with pre-launch is important. I did about a month last time. I kind of wish I had longer to do that, to stir up a little preliminary buzz, but then once the campaign went live, I ran it for just under 30 days. It was a cycle between when I launched my newsletter and then another new newsletter, because I do that monthly. So it made sense for me to be like, launch day, wrap up, last few chances of, 24 hours of backing kind of thing. And that's what I did, because I didn't want the actual campaign to go too long where people lose interest, lose track, or continue to say, I'll get it later, and then again, forget about it. But I did like the fact that, you know, you can always have a longer period of the pre-sign up stuff. You know,
Right.
that I've seen people have that almost pre-sign up for a full year prior, and I'm like, whoo, okay, but it works. You know, it can work. So it's
Yeah, I would forget about it.
yes, it definitely. So it's one of those things you have to figure out what makes sense for you and energy and time, because it can be exhausting, but on the other hand, the payout has the potential to do very well. So hopefully yours does spectacularly.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I'm impressed with you trying to do multiple releases, in my mind, very close together. So you're doing the special edition, and then you're launching, you said, the first book of a new series of YA?
Yes. So the first book, so it's Shadow Royals, Prince of Darkness. That will be coming out most likely October 31st. I'm also trying to plan it around all of my vacations that are all now hitting in September and October. That just ends up happening with my full-time job, where I try and find the lulls in my full-time career and it happened to be September, October is when I could finally take time off. So, and it's looking like October 31st for that one.
Ah, hey, that's a Halloween release. That's kind of fun.
Yes.
And what is this new book series about? Like, who are your characters? Let me know a little bit more about.
Okay, so this is based off of the Seven Sins. It's dual POVs, enemies to lovers. The main protagonist, Raven, she lives in a hunter's village on the edge of Blood Hill Forest, where there's a bunch of beasts that come out, and they're kind of on the border of their kingdom, and she's a beast hunter, practically trying to save her village. And there is the Shadow Royals. So this world deals with shadows and spirits. I guess similar in that, like heaven and hell, but it's shadows versus spirits. And in this shadow realm, there are the seven sins. And the main one is Derek, and he is the sin of pride. And he is trying to save his realm, and there is a prophecy that is foretold about the end of the shadows. So he's trying to do everything that he can to save the shadow realm and his home, and he'll do whatever means necessary to protect his home. And he comes across Raven, and for some reason or another, one of his powers is the power of time, and he foresees her being an important piece and a vital key to saving his realm.
Ooh, I like that. And I was going to say the seven deadly sins are a fun concept to play with. I haven't read too many books that utilize them, but I do enjoy when I've seen them used in various other kind of media, shows and movies, and I always think that is kind of a fun concept to play with. So I'm sure that was kind of entertaining for you to start creating, and I can only gather that throughout this potential series, you'll be able to meet all seven of them, maybe?
Yes, so this is currently a planned 7-book series.
Okay.
While the primary focus follows Raven and Derek, it does dabble a little bit into a few other POVs from the other sins while the story is transitioning. For instance, the second book focuses on the Kingdom of Wrath, and you can get a few POVs from Wrath's point of view, kind of as like bonus chapters. And the other books will follow that as well.
I see in the comments Ashley is kind of mind blown with the concept of planning
Yes.
a 7-book series. And
7
I'll
books.
just say, planning a longer series, that can be very nerve-wracking for certain people. On the other hand, sometimes it just makes sense. So everybody works so differently in writing. So how much do you plan and prep when you're working on a series? Like, how much do you know before you start the first few words of your book?
So I think that's a great question. It really depends for me on the manuscript and the series that I'm trying to develop. I'll come out with an outline, trying to pinpoint my, I guess, focus points for each chapter. But then as I write, that outline kind of just combusts and it's no longer useful. My characters have a way of speaking for themselves, as I'm sure you probably know.
Oh, yeah.
But I will try and attempt to have an outline. Like, I know my my main points for the story. I know where I need to hit my climaxes. I have a general idea of what needs to happen, but a lot of cases it ends up kind of melding in its own way.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that because how I've kind of figured out what works best for me at this moment. It always changes between books and series and whatnot, but I love the idea of these kind of rolling notes. And so when I have ideas of like maybe I'll block out a loose outline or something, and like you said, have the highlighted points of what I'm thinking the chapters are going to be. And anytime in the work of writing, if something changes, I'll maybe adjust this or that. If I have like a scene that I can't get out of my head, I may try to write the scene down and kind of plug it in what I theoretically think is going to be the chronological order of where it will come. And so whenever I get to those spots, if it does make sense to use those scenes or images or dialogue, it's already there. And it's like cut, paste, block. Yay! Yep. Moving on. But yeah, the characters and the story have a way of taking their control.
They do. And I don't know if you do this as well, but it's something that happens to me a lot. When I'm writing and I'm just not feeling a chapter, occasionally I'll skip around and I'll hop to different chapters or different points in the book, and then I'll come back, or I'll put little in parentheses, coming back later.
I love that. I have heard other authors do that. I have not. I also know, because if I personally got into that mentality, I would never get back to the points where, for me, slow down, which are those scene building chapters or situations. Like, I want that action. Give me that action. Give me the fun. Give me some quippy dialogue. And then, but trying to get to those moments, sometimes those are the slower things and you got to do it for the story to make sense. But yeah, again, that goes to the thing is every author figures out how to handle, if you're bored with a chapter or not. I originally started, my first 3 series were single POV. So it also was really hard because it was like, I have to slog through the story if I get a slow point. Recently, some of my upcoming works are multiple POVs. And it is kind of fun because you finish a chapter and instead of, getting bored and everything like that, I'm jumping to a new character at a new place in a totally different situation. I'm like, ooh, wait, hold on. This is fun. So that's been keeping me entertained at the moment. But have you come up with any kind of fun tricks to keep your motivation going outside of the fact that you may jump around chapter to chapter?
I think it tends to reason why I have so many different manuscripts sitting on my Google Drive. When I do get bored with the chapter, I'll tend to kind of come back later, whether that be jumping to another part in my manuscript or starting something entirely. I have a fun time drafting up new realms or new series, and that tends to be kind of where my brain, especially in like the slower parts of a book, I'll just jot it down and I'll come back later. To get out of that slump, I listen to a lot of music. And if I find a really good song that gets me in that mood or in my character's head, I will use it for weeks, maybe even months, as like my mantra for doing that chapter.
Yeah, I like that. I love creating playlists that get me inspired for whatever book I'm working on. But surprisingly, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not as surprising, I can't write with background noise. It has to be dead silent. I can't have distraction. I have to be 100% focused if I'm writing new material versus like editing or something like that. But I do like music getting you in the headspace. Have you ever, or do you, because I've done this before and I think people are enjoying it, when you come up with some kind of playlist that matches your book and share it with readers in some way?
So actually, in my Blood of Power trilogy, at the very front of the book, I have a Spotify playlist with all of my songs. I do that for each book, and even for all of my other manuscripts, I have a playlist that really helps me get in the mood for like certain chapters or certain scenes or my characters. And then I'll occasionally go back and add more songs, or I'll remove songs depending on if like I'm not feeling it anymore.
I like that. And I think, again, we're going back to what we talked about at the beginning of using different senses to get readers into the spirit of your world, be it the sense of smell with your candles and soaps, or again, the auditory stuff with like music and playlist. I think that it's just fun. There are so many creative ways authors can like make their worlds just that much more tactile.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So,
no, go ahead.
oh, no, 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 you go.
I was just gonna say another fun thing that I like to do as well. I don't know if anyone here plays D&D, but I do use Hero Forge, and I will make 3D minis of my characters as well. I have a habit of editing that a lot as well, and it also helps for visualization of my characters, especially when I'm writing them. Uh, when I swap to different manuscripts, sometimes it can be difficult of I don't remember what this person was wearing, what their eye color was, and having those minis like does wonders. It's game changer.
Hey, you're the first person outside of like myself that does that, and I'm proud. I'm proud of you because yeah, I have a couple minis based off some of my characters in my YA series, and at the time I had my husband because he's really big in the D&D side of things, was helping me come up with the character sheets and the special subclasses and all that kind of stuff that would kind of reflect a little bit of the characters in case people wanted to actually play them in their game. But I do like that because again, it's a visual little representation of your characters, and even people who don't play TTRPG games can have that, and be like, this is really neat. This is what the character looks like, and decorate their bookshelves with stuff like that. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. I do. So with your first book, you said it was a trilogy, right?
Correct. Yes.
So who are the characters in your first series? Because we talked a little bit about your upcoming one, which is exciting. I love the Seven Deadly Sins idea. I really do.
So the first one takes a little bit of a different spin. If anyone knows, I Am Number Four is read like the movie, or I personally think it was an okay adaptation if you're thinking about just the movie, not the book to movie adaptation. But I Am Number Four kind of follows kind of like a group of aliens, and it's a little bit similar for the Blood of Power trilogy, where there's a group of aliens that are experimented on their home planet, and they seek refuge on Earth. And the main protagonist, Ray, she's dealing with emotional loss, losing her parents, and trying to raise her twin younger brothers, Josh and Jeremy. And she kind of gets caught in the crossfire between these alien refugees and the alien race that is after them. And because of something that's in her blood, they are now after her as well. So in this alien refugee group, there's six of them, and she calls them the Sixers. There is a little bit of a romance between her and Darren, as well as like a love triangle, a little bit with Carter. And that kind of transforms a little bit over the trilogy. It is very plot based, not more so on the romance. It is young adult. But there is about six of them, which can get a little bit, I guess, confusing at some points in time when you're trying to look between having so many different characters in one book and then trying to keep with adding more characters later on in the series.
So how many POV characters are in this trilogy?
So just one. So it's just from Ray's perspective in this one. For the special edition, I am actually adding in some special bonus chapters between Carter and Darren's POV.
Ooh, fun. I like that. I was going to say, I've only started seeing stuff like that very recently where people will, for a special edition, have maybe in the back, bonus chapters in different POVs or, stuff like that. And I think that is kind of neat to see someone either write the same chapter, but from another character's point of view, or have, again, these new scenes that have never been before talked about because, again, different characters, different situations, whatnot, and you're able to share that. So, again, so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It also adds a little bit more of an element on the author's point, just diving more into a series that you kind of have made your world for the last couple of years, and then adding more onto that. It's enjoyable for me.
So with that wrap up with the trilogy, how did you handle saying goodbye to that world, or are you potentially going back to that world at some point in the future?
I would not say I am saying goodbye.
Okay.
I have a little bit of a scene in there where I could end up doing a spin-off series, and I've tinkered with doing that a little bit. Mm-hmm. I most likely will end up coming back to it maybe over the next few years, but I'm focusing on my other series right now, so giving myself a little breather. So I don't really think I've said goodbye yet, primarily because there's definitely other spins that I could do with it. And
I think that's fine. Like wrapping up your arc and then having that potential there in the back pocket. So if you ever just feel the need to go back there and again expand upon characters or situations, you can. That's something that I bet the readers like that, at least the hope that they can go back.
Yes.
So you sound like a person who does a lot of live events. Like how many do you try to do in a month, a year, or whatever? But like because you mentioned that that is one of the better ways for you to make connections with your readership. So how do you like plan your
So I
time?
will say this is my first year where I've started doing in-person events. I completed my trilogy last year, so I didn't really start trying to get into the in-person events until I kind of completed my trilogy. I tend to do at least two a month on the weekends, full-time job as I mentioned. So really my Saturdays are dedicated to finding events. And biggest thing for me is follow other authors. For me, it's outreach as well as I guess like an opportunity to meet with other authors and get their tips and tricks. And we all follow each other's Instagrams. Like we see like, hey, I'm going to this event. If you wanted to follow and sign up. A few of us have applied to other larger events in hopes that at least maybe one or two of us could maybe carpool together or we'll get
Mhm.
applied. And we kind of just connect and we'll reach out to one another, making sure that, like, hey, like our little group, this is where everyone needs to be at. And we'll all try and make sure that everyone's on the same page with what the events are, and if anyone needs help with anything. And in terms of connecting with readers, again, going back to having that in-person connection, talking to them like, what is the genre like that you like? What are stories that you want to see? And there's actually, I was at an event this past Saturday. It was a local event. It was the Earth and Arts Festival, and I had one lady came up and she goes, "You're the author?" It's like, "Yeah, like these are my books." And she goes, "I'm actually rereading this series right now. I saw it on my Facebook. It showed up on my like sponsorship for Kindle Unlimited. I'm rereading them. Like this is so cool." So being able to make that connection and even finding like readers that have read your book and they don't know you, like that is like for me like the happiest thing that could ever happen.
Oh yeah, I love stories like that when it's like the author in the wild, and then someone's like, "Oh wait, A plus B, oh my goodness," and make that connection. That is that is so special. So, or is there any particular event that's coming up that you're looking forward to, maybe more than others, or I don't know how comfortable you are marketing where you're going to be next, but you're welcome to mention some of those if you want.
Yeah, so I am in the 757 area of Virginia. So that includes like Hampton Roads, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Suffolk. So I'm kind of in that knit of a group. My next event that I'm really looking forward to is actually our 757 Book Festies. So for this event, it's organized, excuse me, by our Book Besties. There's actually a Facebook page for this if anyone is in the 757 area. They are like so supportive to all of our events, especially for local authors. They're absolutely amazing. So that's the one I'm looking forward to the most.
That's neat. I love that. And I love the fact that you're finding that nice community of people who you know and get to hang out with on the author side, because I don't know about you. I am an extreme extrovert and writing is a very introverted job. So when I go to events, there's so much like relief and like that I'm hanging out with essentially, coworkers in a weird way. Like we're
Yeah.
all in the same kind of business and we can finally see each other in the real world and engage in each other. And then like you mentioned before, learn from one another, have tips, have tricks, have recommendations, and hopefully we're all making each other better writers, better authors, and again, of course, connecting with new readers too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Those are always my favorite things as well, is going to the events and just meeting people and talking with people. Everyone has like, really cool stories, especially aspiring authors when they come out and they're like so timid about asking questions. If anyone needs help, I will be there to help. There was actually a middle schooler that came up to me during one of my previous events and said that she wanted to be a writer. She gave me her contact information, and she and I have chatted a little bit. But those are the really cool things that you get to be able to do when you're out doing like in-person events. Really trying to help and build that community.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. So, jumping a little bit to a new topic, because you also talked about one of your other upcoming things early-ish next year is your first book or book series that's aimed more for adults. So what made you decide I'm going to jump from the YA bracket and now start spanning to, a different age group? What was it that influenced or inspired you to do that?
So I think it's two things. The first one is I am an adult reader, and it is a genre that I do like reading and I do like writing, rather than just sticking with one genre. The second is being able to get that community as well as potential new readers. So not only am I marketing the young adults, but the adults as well. A lot of the adults, especially at events, are looking for that, adult or dark romance genre. And having both young adult and adult kind of hits both brackets of the community that I'm seeing at my in-person events. That was the other reason as well.
It makes sense. And again, as I mentioned before, it was like one of my experiences, it's easier to sell adult books because, online as well as at in-person events, because most of the people who are attending these events are the adults are the ones who are buying the stuff. And so it just makes sense. Plus they'll gravitate to a little more mature content because, not necessarily everybody wants to read, about teenagers and, their lives. They want to read about people who are maybe reflective a little better of their age, their stage in life and what's been going on. But yeah, I like that. And so how are you having a lot of fun, or, just tell me how you're developing the characters for this upcoming adult series.
So the adult series for this one, it's still on the track of like witches and demons. I kind of have a theme a little bit with, I guess, the darker sides of things. And for this one, it follows a morally gray female main character, and that is not one that I typically see a lot in books, and one that I actually kind of want to dabble in a little bit. So the female character for this one, she is a princess to Parinthia, and she has kind of gave up her right to the crown. She doesn't want it at all, but she's there to help her sister and her younger brother as needed, and she'll do anything to protect her family, but she doesn't want the crown. And she kind of does a lot of questionable things, especially when it comes to rebellion. And there is also a group that they call the Wraiths, and it kind of dabbles in multiple different sections or enemies. And for this one, I just have a lot of fun dealing with like the dark and the mysterious, especially as it comes to Cassie.
Oh yeah, I like that. And there's some great things about keeping a theme, because one, when you decorate your tables or booths, the theme is set. Two, if you are known as the person who writes, these kind of things, it can help people, one, remember you, and two, kind of keep an eye out for your next book, because there will be a little bit of expectation. It's up to you if you keep that expectation, but of what kind of stories and creatures and entities that you typically kind of gravitate towards. I'm all over the place. If it's fantasy, I love it.
So I will say some of my other series that I'm working on is not demons and witches. One of my favorite ones is actually Galactic Raiders. So if anyone has seen Treasure Planet, it's an adult version of Treasure Planet.
I like that pitch. See, you're good at these little pitches. Oh man, I wish I was better. Mine, I swear, it's like I can read you the book before I finish like these pitches. Sometimes it feels like, just because I do have like these like 3 or 4 paragraph long things, when everybody's like, oh, it's an adult version of Treasure Planet. I'm like, oh, I get that. That was so nice.
So I found most people don't have the attention span for longer than maybe like a minute when you're trying to give a spiel of a book. So I make it like as simple as possible when I'm trying to pitch something. That's why, like, for instance, my Blood of Power trilogy, I'll be like, have you seen I Am Number 4? And then, like, if they're like, oh yeah, like so-and-so, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but then if they haven't, I'll give my quick, short spiel, because then they'll start kind of drifting, or they're not really paying attention much. So I try and make it short and sweet. That's generally the goal.
And that is a goal that everybody should have. I'm just terrible at achieving that goal. I have weaknesses, and that is definitely one of them.
We all
But
have weaknesses.
very true. Very true. Well, I'm also looking at the hour. I know this is where it's about the time, maybe a little early, but like when it starts picking up the speed towards the latter side. And I always like to ask certain questions because, again, if this place is nice, when this little video is nice, I'll be able to repurpose this and put all your information down below in the next week or so. But with that said, let me go ask, where can people get your books? You mentioned KU a little bit, but just to go over everything, are they wide? Do you sell direct? That kind of thing. And so where can people get your books?
So they are on Amazon and Barnes & Noble's, Kindle Unlimited, and they are also on my website at enchantingrealmsco.com as well.
Nice. I love that. And I want to assume, but then I also never want to assume, do you sign your copies of your books if people buy them online?
I do, yes.
And do you also I did not check this. I should have actually checked your website to see what your offerings, but you mentioned stuff about like book boxes. Do you ever create book box bundles up there?
I do, and I actually do book boxes when I'm at events. And I will say there are a lot of authors doing that book boxes at in-person events, and I have found that a lot of people will tend to end up buying book boxes. So if you're an author and that's something that you're interested in, I would highly suggest doing book boxes. Everyone loves the little goodies, and those are things that at least the local authors in my area are starting to trend to do.
Ooh, okay, now I have a question. Now I was just like, I'll come back to my general ones, but wait, hold on. So when you're going to events and you're doing the book boxes, because I know toting everything to an event and all that's a lot of time, energy anyways. So all I can think of is how many things you're packing in order to have the book boxes. So do you, one, prep them in advance, and two, how many do you bring per event?
So I do prep them in advance. I generally will make about 10 book boxes for events. It also depends on the anticipation of attendees. So if it's a larger attendee group, I'll generally try and maybe have about 15 or so book boxes. But I generally always tend to have at least 10.
I like this. Sorry, I always make notes because I always learn things at doing these chats. I was like, wait, I've never considered bringing them at events. I've sold, various stuff like that on my own shop, but I was just like, that's interesting.
And for special editions as well, people like book boxes. I actually helped out an author recently. She ended up buying some candles and soaps for her special edition that she advertised on her Kickstarter. And I actually needed to this week get everything together for her. But she ended up needing 75 candles and 130 soaps for her Kickstarter. So that's like absolutely amazing. Like she did a fantastic job with her Kickstarter. It was funded like probably within an hour. It was amazing.
See, success stories. I love success stories, and that is one of those kind of things, those kind of campaigns have been, and I truly believe are still very, very helpful. And I do encourage people to look into that if you've never considered that before, if you were an author. But that is, amazing stuff that you can get off a campaign like that. But yeah, never thought about book boxes at events. That's fun. One of the other questions that I always like to ask, going kind of off what we were saying, is what kind of formats do you offer your book in? Paperback, hardcover, ebook, and audio, that kind of thing.
So I have paperback, hardback, and ebook. I am working on the audio, and I'm actually doing that myself.
Woo! You're more talented than I, because if I ever did my own audio, all the characters would sound like this.
So I am recruiting my husband for the male voices.
Ooh, nice. Ooh, that is exciting. Yeah, nope, I do not have that skill, that power, that talent, or that tech. So anybody who is able to do that, I highly applaud, because I value all my narrators, because I can't do that. I can't even fathom trying to do that. So
I think it's good practice with playing D&D, where we do like role playing and changes of voices, because then some of your friends will be like, what are you doing? That's not what that sounds like.
I guess I never thought about that too, but yeah, there are a lot of narrators who also play D&D and stuff like that. I mean, case in point, what is it, Vox Machina? I mean, that was a whole group of D&D narrators that got together to start doing D&D together, and lo and behold, now they have multiple TV series based off their campaigns, and it's just wild, just the way the world works sometimes. But I also, outside of Book Talk, where can people find and follow you? Website, newsletter, other socials, that kind of thing.
So Enchanted Realms Co., I do send out a monthly newsletter, generally at the start of the month. I do have Instagram and a Facebook page as well.
Nice. Yeah, it's always good to be a little diverse when it comes to your platforms, but don't do as what I do and try to do all of it.
I will say I did try to do all of it at one point, and I have found that just doing TikTok and then repurposing those videos on Instagram and Facebook is kind of the way to go.
Oh yes. Work smarter, not harder. I love that theory of, if you're taking the time and energy to create something one place, use that content as much as possible elsewhere, because yes, you'll get those followers that will try to follow you on multiple accounts. On the other hand, you're always, each different platforms pushing it to whole different groups of people too, so it never hurts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what outside of, and I know I hate to ask this question because no one likes talking about marketing sometimes, but outside of live events, what's your next favorite thing to market your books, if you have another thing that you like?
It would probably be Facebook ads.
Ooh, okay. Tell me more, because I am terrible at those. See, weaknesses, and I just never figured that one out.
I have not been successful at honestly any other platform besides Facebook ads. And it really tailors to doing Kindle Unlimited, that it's free if you have Kindle Unlimited. Then I will also say that using Facebook for some of my other products, for like my soaps and my candles, tends to help with also doing in-person physical buying on my site.
Nice. See, crafty. I like that. And again, for anybody who listens, when you're deciding what you do, like, because there are ways where you KU your, exclusive through them with ebooks versus wide, there's pros and cons to everything. Definitely for the people who are specifically Kindle Unlimited readers, they do love that stuff. They want to know your book's there because they will definitely add it. So that's always a nice thing. Let me ask also, since we're kind of towards the latter part of this hour, is there any particular topic or that you wanted to cover that we haven't had a chance to cover? Any questions that you wanted to ask that you haven't had a chance to ask? Because this is that kind of great time to make sure we cover everything you want to.
Yeah, no, I guess this is a general question, but if you could start over again, this actually might be a heavy loaded question. If you could start over again, what is one thing that you would have done differently?
Oh, wait, one?
Just one. Just
I have
one.
a book for you.
Like the big one.
Oh my. Okay, wait. I will do two. I will definitely say actually two. And they're just like one of those, well, duh kind of things. But honestly, I've made every mistake possible the first time. I'd like to think that I learn from my mistakes and I get better. But yeah, the first time I released a book, it was, now mind you, back in 2016, but I thought I was going to release a book and everybody was going to find it and it was going to be happy all around. That was not the case. So I would have been better about marketing strategy, about like what I was going to do to make sure people knew about my book. That would be a big thing that would have helped me off at a good start. And so one of the things I always like to recommend people is, even if your book's not published, start building a platform. Start talking that, hey, I'm a writer. You don't have to give things away, but you can just build the buzz of, I'm on my writing journey. These are the books I like, blah, 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 and start getting followers so then when you're ready to start marketing your book and talking about your upcoming, work, you will have readers waiting. So that one's my big one. The other one is, please be aware of what your genre and subgenre cover designs are, what people expect. Because my first book's cover was not this book cover. It looked very different and it did not catch the right readers. As soon as I did a little bit of research and found a cover designer who knew that particular genre, subgenre, age bracket, all of a sudden I started making sales. So, like I said, I have a book of those things. So, how about you? I'm going to flip it back towards you. What would you do differently if you started over tomorrow?
Well, you actually kind of hit both of mine. I had previous covers for my Blood of Power trilogy, and they just weren't eye-catching. And while I had a cover artist do them, it just was not grabbing the right readers. So
Yeah.
I ended up redoing them, and I found an artist that did more of that fantasy young adult, and she did a phenomenal job. And every time I go to events, people like, your covers are beautiful, and they'll kind of gravitate over to my stall just because I have a lot of color and vibrancy between like my soaps and my candles. And then having, so my first book is purple, my second book is like a red with a little bit of orange, and then my third book is blue. So I have a lot of color and vibrancy over at my, generally at my stall, and a lot of readers will tend to sway over to that because it's eye popping, and it grabs the attention of the readers as soon as they walk in. Um, let's see a second thing that maybe might be different. Getting the right editor. My first editor that I had was probably not the best, and while she was very reputable, we probably should have had a video call maybe to sit down and chat about my expectations and deadlines, what that looks like. And I am now using a different editor, and she's been absolutely phenomenal. But having that in-person connection with your editor and really sitting down for that first time to chat about what your expectations are is vital. I've also done that with another editor. So I have an editor for my young adult, and I have an editor for my adult. Some editors tend to do specific genres, and you just need to be aware and ask those questions about what are you comfortable with and what is the genre that you tend to edit.
Well, and yes, those are those things that people don't think about until usually the uh-oh after the fact. What did I do? And I had a little situation kind of like you recently where I worked with an editor, but what I needed and what kind of errors that I made were clearly things that she caught. And I'm a very phonetic speller. So I will sound things out and I'll write real words, but they're not necessarily the right real word.
People
And
tend to think that authors know how to spell, and they'll be like, "Kayla, like, how do you spell this?" Like, I don't know, D E.
yeah. Yeah, and so there's all different types of editors. For anybody who doesn't know, there are different types of editors for different things. There's also different quality editors, so make sure you do your research and everything. And the problem for me, and the problem for probably a lot of other people, is if you're making the errors, you can't catch the errors. So you can't catch and check if the editor, for me at least it's hard. I mean, unless I see like little pen marks or whatever, but it's hard for me to see if the editor I hire is really good unless I have someone else then look over it again. Isn't that weird, an editor for an editor? At least until you build that kind of connection, understand, okay, yes, this person's working well, this one, and this one's not. But it can be a challenge to get that right person. And when you do get that right person, you want to keep them as long as possible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I highly encourage for those seeking out editors to do video calls. Just make sure that the editor that you're working with, has, not like a personality, but you're able to connect with them on a personal level. And also making sure that they send you updates, whether that be weekly or bi-weekly.
Yeah, well, that's a good one. That's a good point too. I never thought about that aspect. I'm a trusting individual, maybe too much so, but yes, and I see you, Atlas. We cling to our editors like koalas. I do like that.
We do.
And a good cover designer, depending on who you're working with for what kind of project. Good cover designers are something. I don't know if you do your own covers, or you said you worked with people for your covers. Actually,
yes, I do.
Do you have examples of your books nearby? I mean, you may not have. I didn't think about it.
So I do have one.
Yay!
I have this one.
Ooh, pretty. That is a pretty purple color.
Don't have the other ones, but I just had that one over here because technically this one is now my copy. This is another item for authors. Just think about where you are buying your author copies to sell at events. I have had nothing but issues with Engram. I actually use Amazon, and as much as I tend to try and not use them, their return policy as of lately has been phenomenal, especially with getting damaged books. Before is a little bit of a challenge, but recently they've kind of changed those policies, and it makes things so much easier, especially for self-published authors. And Ingram, it's been a nightmare.
Don't tell me these things. Okay, the reason why the reason why is I have been one of my back of my head goals for this year was going to finally bite the bullet and take my physical copies wide. I've done ebooks and most of my audiobooks, depending on my contract, but I've been wanting to do it with just the physical books. But I hear so many bad things about Ingram. On the other hand, there aren't a lot of other people that do what they do to their level. So I'm still keeping my eye out in case someone else is like, oh, we distribute all this kind of stuff. But like, man, it's, again, I wish it was easier. I wish things worked the way we wanted it to work. I wish there was a trick. But yeah, it is always nice to see things, that when you do see something that's working in the author's favor. And I see Atlas here, so I'll throw him a little win there for people like Atlas who work behind the scenes diligently and create platforms like IAX, who's going to have their own version of KDP for audiobooks and ebooks will be launching before you know it. Like, stuff like that is exciting when I hear stuff
amazing.
like that. Yeah, and it's those are like good things. I love wins like that and I love people like that. But anywho, and let me see. Okay, cool. Just checking the time. Now I lost my train of thought. So what was it? I'm gonna go all the way back and ask one of the most basic questions that I'm shocked that I didn't ask already earlier. What made you to decide to sit down and write a book? Because there's so many people that come up with great ideas but never actually sit down to write a full book. And you have 3 published and you have plenty more on the way.
So I will say I've always enjoyed writing, and this is maybe one of my embarrassing stories that my family talks about. But when I was in elementary school, I actually wrote some like short stories, and I went to school and I was trying to get like other kids to buy my short stories for like a quarter. And I remember getting in trouble by my teachers because I was trying to sell things during, I guess, school time for my short stories. It was a quarter. It wasn't like a lot. And one thing that my family does tend to occasionally bring up about how I was already into writing when I was already in elementary school. And I've always started writing manuscripts even when I was in high school. I will guiltily also say that rather than paying attention, I would be writing. And then when I went to college, while I didn't have a lot of time, especially with I don't know how to like explain the degree, but it's essentially an engineering degree. It's a little bit different. I didn't really have a lot of time, especially with being in thermodynamics and fluids, but I would still tend to write. And then as soon as COVID hit and I was kind of in that lull between graduating and then my job, I was like, all right, this is my time. Like, I'm going to start publishing. And so I kind of already had my books already set up. I just really needed to take that final step.
That's really, yeah, that is neat. And it is, again, I love that question because everybody has such different answers. And some people, it sounds like you're a little bit like me, where we were always creating stories. Now, I knew I wanted to be a writer. Just in my mind, that was going to be the case. But I didn't actually sit down and start writing until way later. But I loved creating stories. I love creating characters and backstory and worlds and everything. So it is kind of neat to see that there are people kind of like us that have always wanted to do this in some form or fashion. And then there are people who this is a new passion, a new thing to them, and all are 100% valid and fantastic. What would you like your next step to be as an author? Is there something that you would be like a level of achievement for you, like something that you want to strive for? And this could be however you interpret it.
I would probably say my next milestone, and this is a big milestone between publishing and leaping, would be to attend a Polycon. That would be my, all right, I've made it. Like, I'm good. Like, I have made it in life, and I'm ready.
I love that. I love that. I'm like, I see some people cheering that one. And I see everybody has different answers to that kind of stuff. One of my answers is what I've been saying out loud. So if anybody's listening and wants to give me a win, I want to walk at an event and see someone cosplaying one of my characters. That's what
that would be pretty cool.
Come on, someone just I'm putting that out in the world. I'm expecting this to happen one day at some point, one of my characters. Now, I also realized retrospectively that maybe I need to give my book characters a little more funky outfits that make them a little more iconic. And that might help too, but I just like that idea. Just walk around and be like, that's my character.
That would be pretty amazing.
Yes, I say it will be. Will, because I'm putting it out into the world. And will for you, because you will make it to a Polycon one day. So put it out to the world. Will.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So, need to rub the genie lamp.
Yes. Or as one of my upcoming books, instead of putting a gin in a lamp, I'm putting it in a musical instrument. So my board has this cursed instrument that he just acquired. That's what I've been working on this week. Anywho, however you do it. But yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and chatting about your writing, your books, and all the other cool things that you're up to. And, if anybody else has any final questions, this is that great time. But outside of that, I really appreciated talking to you about your business. And for anybody who's just jumping in, she makes not just writes fantastic books, but also does these book boxes with homemade candles that represent scents from the worlds and vibes, and soaps, and you were talking about the TTRPG miniatures, which I love when people do that. But yeah, so I love it. Fascinating. Perfect. Playlist. Let's do it.
All the things.
All the things. Tactile, sound, scent, all the things. Asking about lore and legend. I don't know if that's for you or me. I am not doing lore or legend. That sounds familiar. I don't know why it's on my radar. How about you?
It is not on my list.
I'm going to write this down. Lore.
It honestly might be in conflicting with another one of my events. I've definitely heard of it, but I don't think I applied for this year or next year.
I'm making notes because every time I talk to someone, they're mentioning new things. I'm like, Now, I will admit I am biased to full weekend events versus the one-day things, which I know other people absolutely love the one-day things. But if I don't have to travel somewhere, I want to get the bang out of my book. Make it a full weekend.
Try to combine it with vacation.
Okay, very smart. But that's the thing, is you're an author who has I say secondary job. You could say day job, other job, because being an author is a job. So you have a second job. So I understand it's hard to do all the things we want when, there's also life.
and only a limited amount of PTO.
That's true. That is true. But yeah, one more time, thank you so much for hanging out today. If you ever want to do another one of these, let me know. As you now realize, I plan them in advance, but I always love catching up with people, especially after upcoming releases. And you have a number upcoming this year. So that would be kind of fun to catch up after the fact and see how special editions do, new book launches, and new series and all that kind of stuff. But truly, thank you. And for everybody who's jumped in and hung out, I appreciate all you guys, and happy reading, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.